So let's move on to our first topic, which is all going to be around servicing and maintenance of equipment. Kyle, can you walk us through the changes that occurred in the 2023 NEC and why they were implemented?
Sure, I'd love to. So the 2023 edition brought us a new code section, 110.17, specifically addressing servicing and maintenance of equipment and putting a focus on why that's an important part of the installation. And you know, the installation of the equipment is one thing, but maintaining it is another part of making sure that it's safe and reliable. The service and maintenance requirements that we see now in this section really put a focus on the individual performing the maintenance to ensure that they're qualified. So you can't just have individuals that aren't familiar with that equipment and whatnot performing the maintenance and whatnot with that equipment. There's also some specific things when replacing parts and components of specific electrical equipment that the NEC now recognizes and adds some additional requirements to. Specifically, you know, anytime you're replacing components, you have to consult with the original equipment manufacturer to ensure that you're replacing the components correctly or with the identified products. The replacement parts have to be identified per code. In lieu of that, you could consult with an engineer that has experience in that equipment and those types of design replacement parts, and then it's got to be approved by the AHJ. So these changes are ones that, you know, it's an important change, but the fear is it might go under the radar with AHJs and contractors alike, but we really got to make sure that everybody understands what these requirements are and how they're going to impact, you know, the industry at large. Additionally, there's some challenges that come with how do you determine if somebody is qualified to do and perform that maintenance? You know, there's no roadmap that specifically tells somebody how, you know, to identify a qualified person versus somebody who's not. This could bleed over into the insurance industry and some of the other things that go around protecting property and people. So there's a lot going on here with this requirement. The safety is always the underlying theme of any time we have electrical installations. And you know, I guess the last piece of this is ensuring that a qualified person doing the work is important from a safety aspect and a risk management standpoint, because a lot of incidents, arc flash incidents and shock incidents that occur, fatal and otherwise, are directly related to the maintenance industry. So there's a lot of important stuff going on.
You know, Kyle, when we think about a qualified person, we tend to think about NFPA 70E. And this little nuance in the code, bringing the importance of service and maintenance by a qualified person, kind of extends that thought, right, in 70E. You know, from an original equipment manufacturer standpoint, that's the first place to start for these maintenance and service instructions. The manufacturer has the most knowledge about the in-depth requirements of the design, one of the critical factors that need to be serviced and maintained over the life of that product. So it's really important that we make sure that you introduce or use the manufacturer's instructions along with that. Now, what do you do if there are gaps in that information or there are the manufacturer doesn't provide instructions? Well, we have NFPA 70B that had been a long-standing guide or recommended practice. As I think all of you know, that it was elevated recently and rewritten to a standard for electrical equipment maintenance. So between the manufacturer's instructions and 70B, we now have a platform that really supports electrical equipment service and maintenance and going forward. So I think that as we understand the importance of having a qualified person from electrical safety, from performing service and maintenance, coupled with the instructions by the manufacturer. So Toby, what do you do though if the parts are not available?
Yeah, I mean, we run in that all the time, right? Manufacturers discontinue a line, but always best thing is to seek out the original manufacturer to see what their recommendations are, what the replacement parts are for that type of equipment. It's also reason why you want to use a reputable manufacturer who has been around for a long time, is going to be around for a long time. So when you need to maintenance that equipment in the future. But what happens when you have a manufacturer that's not around anymore? There's a lot of manufacturers that aren't in business anymore. And like Kyle was saying, you can get an engineer who's qualified in that to help you design and come up with that system. And you know, they'll be able to take responsibility for that design as well. But it's also good to get the AHJ involved so they know what's going on.
From a big picture standpoint, this really explains or shows the ties between 70, the NEC, 70B, and 70E, and how all of these fit together and these links that the NEC has really put into place. right? I think that when we think about equipment service and maintenance, it really all starts with the NEC compliant installation. And the elevation of 70B along with the manufacturer's instructions really sort of set that stage. Also, when we think about 70B and the qualified person discussion about qualified persons from a safety perspective, but also from a service and maintenance perspective, there are allowances in 70B for using measurement data, sensors buried in the equipment that can provide equipment health, and that can set the sequence or the prescriptive of schedules for when service and maintenance has to happen. And so that adjustment really means that electrical workers sometimes will have to go into the equipment less. So overall, I think this important tie that the NEC is making between 70, 70E, and 70B is a good one.
Yeah, Chad, more than ever, you know, the 2023 NEC really is solidifying that link, and installation requirements that really support maintenance and safety are becoming a real thing now in the 2023 more than ever.
Yeah, and as contractors, we've all worked on poorly installed stuff, and I think this is really good to have the NEC say you need to have a proper installation so in the future when you're service and maintaining that equipment, you're in a safe situation.